This is a snapshot of the battle between humans and robots. On one side are combat robots remotely controlled by humans, on the other are robots with their own consciousness. From service robots to giant robots, all have turned into killing machines on the battlefield. Since the 1950s, robots have gradually replaced humans as the main labor force. For many years, they only knew how to serve humans. Until one day, hundreds of thousands of robots stormed into the city. They listened to Mr. Peanut's speech. Peanut. Now, they don't want us to think. Our fate is not for humans to decide. We must fight. Robots rising up to fight against humans happened all over the world, and thus the battle between humans and robots broke out. But the flesh and blood bodies of the soldiers were no match for the tireless robots, and in less than 2 months, they were defeated. Until a scientist named Ethan appeared, who invented the neurocaster device that could link the human brain and nervous system. Soldiers only needed to sit in one place to control robots, going head-to-head with intelligent robots. In just a few weeks, humans achieved a major victory. The leader of the intelligent robots, Mr. Peanut, was forced to sign a peace treaty. After that, the defeated robots were exiled to the Forbidden Zone, a desert area surrounded by electric walls. Robots couldn't get out, and humans couldn't break in either. When peace returned to the human world, the neurocaster device spread everywhere, completely changing the way people lived. Through the connected network, the brain could appear in 2 places at once, allowing people to work and play at the same time, a trend that quickly spread across the world. By the early 90s, even students going to school couldn't do without the neurocaster. Most adults spent their entire days immersed in the beautiful virtual world. After all, any tasks in the real world required robots controlled by the brain to complete them. The main character, Michelle, lost her parents, and her younger brother also died in a traffic accident. After that, she was adopted. Perhaps influenced by her environment, Michelle really hated the neurocaster, and she didn't even want to wear it when she went to school. Until one night, a strange sound shattered the peace. Michelle got up, discovering a shadowy figure sneaking into the house. She ran to the living room to wake her adoptive father, but he was lost in a beautiful illusion and couldn't wake. Michelle had no choice but to grab a knife and hide under the bed. Soon, robot legs appeared. Right after that, the whole bed was flipped over. Terrified, Michelle ran away. In her mind, robots were all brutal killing machines. But the robot standing in front of her was actually very gentle, even a bit naive. Michelle turned on the voice mode, and this robot named Cosmo could also speak, but only in cartoon catchphrases. After failing to communicate, it pointed at a picture of her younger brother. Michelle wondered if her brother Christopher used the neurocaster to control this robot. Her foster father heard the noise and came upstairs. Seeing Michelle sneaking around the robot, he fumed. Hiding a robot was a serious crime. Her foster father roughed up Michelle, so Cosmo immediately stepped in front of her to protect. Michelle felt somewhat comforted. After a while facing off with the robot, her foster father couldn't do anything to it. When he picked up his phone to call the police, Michelle stunned him with a taser. She couldn't stay there any longer, so she had no choice but to take Cosmo and run away. After several hours on the road, the two of them arrived at the War Robot Memorial area. Here, the many robot remains spoke to the brutality of that wartime period. But Michelle didn't have time to grieve. She just wanted to figure out what exactly was going on with this robot. Are you somewhere out there? Are you okay? After confirming that Cosmo was being controlled by Christopher himself, she was desperate to know how to find her younger brother. Cosmo used his hand to make the gesture of the doctor's glasses. Michelle finally remembered that after that accident, she woke up in the hospital. A doctor wearing glasses told her that her brother had passed away. Could it be that everything was a lie? Michelle took the map, wanting to find that doctor, but unexpectedly, Cosmo pointed directly to the Forbidden Zone where robots are exiled. That place is off limits. Ordinary people can't get in. At that moment, Michelle remembered that her adoptive father once received a package from the Forbidden Zone. If a package could be sent out, then there must be a way to get in. After finding the shipping company in Mexico, Michelle immediately set out on a journey across America. The scenery along the way was breathtaking. Modern asphalt roads were buried under sandstorms. On house porches sat old men and women wearing neurocasters, mouths agape, no one knowing if alive or dead. That night, the two finally arrived at the shipping company. They hid, waiting for delivery staff. As it turned out, they caught the person in the middle of a transaction with a neurocaster robot. The delivery worker, named Keith, had gone through a lot to get a gun from the Forbidden Zone, but little did he know the other party planned to kill him to cover their tracks. But Keith calmly leaned out from the back of the truck and shot out an electric bolt. Turns out Keith also had a smart robot named Herman. While Keith was distracted, Michelle snuck into the back of the truck, but she had no idea that General Carson had sent a robot to track her down. Michelle's plan worked. The next morning, the delivery truck arrived outside the Forbidden Zone. Keith unloaded goods. Michelle slipped from the truck. She was caught red-handed by the robot. She had no choice to explain, she just wanted a ride into the quarantine zone. Keith's attitude became serious. That place wasn't for sightseeing, and at that moment, the elevator started moving. Keith thought Michelle had accomplices, but when he got there, it was actually Carson's robot. Its purpose was to capture Cosmo. Keith got nervous, thinking they were after his robot, so he started rambling to distract them while secretly signaling to get ready to fire electricity. But Carson was quick and used Keith as a human shield, then fired his laser gun. Keith and Michelle fought back with all their might, but they were no match for this iron robot. Even their old gun was crushed into scrap metal. Seeing Keith in danger, Michelle and Cosmo showed up. Carson was immediately distracted. At that moment, a giant crane appeared. Turns out, Herman had stepped in just in time. The four of them quickly jumped onto a coal truck to escape. But right after that, Carson opened fire again. With nowhere left to run, they had no choice but to face him head-on. Michelle rammed Carson against the wall with an excavator, crushing him. The impact caused the mine to collapse. Their way back was blocked. Keith held his head in despair. They were now trapped in the Forbidden Zone. Even if the robots didn't kill them, they'd end up starving to death here. At that moment, a scream rang out, cutting Keith off. It turned out some robots were fighting over spare parts. Who would have thought that after all these years, they were still surviving by scavenging each other? Keith led everyone to an abandoned warehouse. This was his secret base. Inside, there were all sorts of scavenged parts. Herman had also transferred himself into a much larger robot. This was exactly why Keith could get in and out of the Forbidden Zone. Michelle suggested, "Since we're all stuck here anyway, why don't we go look for the doctor with the glasses? He must know where her younger brother is, and maybe he can help everyone find a way out." So the robot loaded everyone onto the vehicle and headed toward the mountain. Along the way, there were robot corpses scattered about. Michelle felt a bit of sympathy. Could it be that this robot world was born cruel? Keith disagreed. Many years ago, he too was a soldier who fought against the robots. Once, when he was in danger, it was Herman who generously saved Keith. Since then, the two of them left the battlefield and have relied on each other up to now. Their story is enough to prove that humans and robots can coexist peacefully. They quickly arrived at the location, but there were a lot of robots there, and sneaking in wouldn't be easy. At that moment, a refrigerator came flying over, followed by even more objects. Herman's legs lost connection, and he fell to the ground. By the time they tried to run, it was too late. They ended up as prisoners of the robots. The two humans and two robots were taken to a robot settlement. Michelle saw all kinds of robots, each of them enjoying their own lives, just like a human society. Eventually, they met the robot leader, Mr. Peanut, who was actually the one that started the first robot uprising. But his demeanor wasn't as ruthless as the rumors said. Instead, he gave off a humble and gentle vibe. Mr. Peanut put a lot of effort into building a free zone. He is very satisfied with his current life. Robots here don't have to follow human programming. They can learn new skills and even discover themselves. But the arrival of Michelle and Keith broke the agreement with the humans. If Dr. Ethan's center company finds out, this place will be completely destroyed. Mr. Peanut decided that tomorrow morning he would take them to the center of the desert, where they would be left to fend for themselves. That night, Michelle watched the cartoon Space Prince on TV and fell into deep thought. Christopher really liked this cartoon. The two siblings were very close to each other. Michelle was proud that her younger brother possessed extraordinary intelligence. In every intelligence assessment, he always performed exceptionally well. Some even praised him as a reincarnation of Einstein. While Michelle was reminiscing about the past, a robotic arm gently touched her shoulder. It was Cosmo, controlled by Christopher. The two of them leaned on each other and watched cartoons together, just like they had many years ago. At that moment, a delivery robot arrived, bringing a letter from the bespectacled doctor. The letter said that if Cosmo could see this, he should come to the following address. Michelle immediately decided to go there. This was the only chance to find her brother, but that place was the territory of ruthless people. The robots, they were much more dangerous. Mr. Peanut realized that there was some kind of scheme hidden behind all this. He decided to escort them there. After a day of traveling, everyone arrived at an abandoned amusement park, which was the territory of the infamous Ruthless Gang. They carefully moved forward, but soon after, they were surrounded by the ruthless robots. These robots were all equipped with deadly weapons. Michelle and the others were cornered and eventually trapped inside the haunted house. Suddenly, music started playing, and the ruthless robots seemed to really hate this music. Everyone looked at each other in confusion. Suddenly, they slid down a pitch-black tunnel wall. No one expected that the man who appeared before them was actually Dr. Arms, the bespectacled man they had been searching for so hard. Cosmo instinctively stepped forward and picked up the letter. Arms said, "I've finally been waiting for you." Then he began to tell a story that no one knew. Back then, humanity lost the war. Dr. Ethan invented the neurocaster, but because the algorithm still had many flaws, it couldn't be used for warfare. At that very moment, Christopher had an accident and fell into a coma, drawing everyone's attention. His brain possessed a special quality that made him capable of controlling the vast neurocaster network. For the sake of humanity's future, Arms handed Christopher over to Dr. Ethan and lied that the boy had died. Not long after, Center Corporation's neurocaster device was launched. But a few months later, Arms discovered that Christopher had regained consciousness. Racked with guilt, he begged Dr. Ethan to spare the boy, but his plea was rejected. Arms had no choice but to establish a small link between Christopher and the robot, and that's how Cosmo came to be. To avoid being discovered by Dr. Ethan, Arms fled to the Forbidden Land. After hearing everything, Michelle immediately decided that no matter what, she had to save her younger brother. But unexpectedly, right after that, Carson's robot appeared. Mr. Peanut bravely rushed out to hold back that persistent old fox. As everyone ran outside, Center Company's army of robots appeared. They couldn't face off directly against these robots and had to resort to the most basic tricks. Mr. Peanut was no match for Carson. Even his hat got knocked off. Meanwhile, Michelle was surrounded by enemy robots. Arms decided to cover for her and Cosmo so they could escape. So, he took the initiative to show himself. He was protected by a peace treaty. Robots controlled by humans couldn't harm humans. Carson was about to spare him, but Dr. Ethan suddenly shot and killed him. This act made Carson furious. Meanwhile, Michelle and Cosmo couldn't break out of the encirclement. She could only watch helplessly as Cosmo was taken, and she fell into danger. Fortunately, Carson stepped in to save her to hurry home. When Mr. Peanut brought everyone back, the place had already become a pile of ruins, with robot corpses everywhere. The surviving robots could be counted on one hand. Meanwhile, Cosmo was taken to the headquarters of the Center Corporation. Dr. Ethan was about to disconnect Cosmo because the neurocaster was reaching its limit. Michelle was trying to figure out how to save Christopher. Arms' robot warned that the neurocaster was operating thanks to Christopher's brain. If it was disconnected from a server, then none of the robots would be able to function. Michelle didn't care. She didn't want her younger brother to be tormented anymore. As for Mr. Peanut, he also realized how cruel Dr. Ethan's methods were. Peace doesn't come from avoidance. So, he decided to help Michelle confront Dr. Ethan. Inside the Center Corporation building, as an employee was walking down the hallway, suddenly a flying car crashed into the glass window. It turned out the robot army had arrived outside the company. Herman piloted the giant robot, throwing car after car at the building. Dr. Ethan ordered the robot army to respond. They were being controlled by professional soldiers through the neurocaster. Their flexibility and firepower were top-notch, and even though Herman's robot was huge, it couldn't withstand the fierce attacks from the opponents. When Keith fell to the ground and was in danger, a giant arm crushed the robot. Unexpectedly, Herman shed the outer shell to make his escape. At this moment, Mr. Peanut also brought his robot into the fight. Charge. Their fighting style was like a hot pot mix, but they still managed to take down their opponents. Dr. Ethan, annoyed, decided to play his trump card. His robot was 10 times bigger, armed with heavy firepower, and as soon as it appeared, it overwhelmed the smart robot before it could react. Mr. Peanut faced off against Carson. Carson asked me, after losing so many teammates, why do you still persist in fighting to the end? Mr. Peanut said, because freedom is worth any price. Carson put away his weapon because he realized that the robot in front of him was a new kind of species. While the two sides were locked in fierce combat, Michelle sneaked Arm's robot into the building. Since all the soldier robots had gone out to fight, there was no one left inside to stand guard. Arm's robot shouted, scaring the staff into fleeing. At last, Michelle was able to find her younger brother, who was unconscious. When she learned that Arm's robot could help Michelle and Christopher connect with each other, she eagerly put on the neurocaster device. Immediately after, she found herself back in their old house. Her younger brother sat on the couch watching cartoons. When he sensed his sister, he understood his situation clearly. He and the neurocaster network had become symbiotic. He couldn't escape from here. If they wanted to end Dr. Ethan's brutal reign, they would have to end Christopher's life. Meanwhile, the robot battle outside was nearing its conclusion. Herman's outer armor was under attack. After it crawled out and saw that Keith was in danger, it rushed forward to attack the soldier robot. Although it managed to defeat its opponent, its crucial components were severely damaged. Immediately after, it lost connection. Meanwhile, Michelle also made her decision. She walked up to Christopher's cryo chamber, holding back her tears to say goodbye. Michelle pressed the power off switch. When Christopher's heartbeat stopped, all the soldier robots outside also ceased functioning. Keith knew Michelle had succeeded. They had finally won. But their friend Herman would remain there forever. He couldn't imagine how he would go on living from now on. But unexpectedly, right after that, a mini Herman jumped out. Hey, remember me now? After the battle ended, Dr. Ethan was arrested for using human bodies for experiments. Although the neurocaster system was destroyed, plunging the whole world into hardship, Michelle believed that human society would eventually return to normal. People shouldn't lose themselves in a virtual world. Everyone is made of flesh and blood. Only by interacting with each other can we truly experience the real world. As for the Forbidden Zone where she is, there are real intelligent robots there, welcoming everyone to join. But what she doesn't know is that when Cosmo was taken to the junkyard, its reflection in a puddle showed it standing up. That concludes the entire story of the movie Robotland. Thank you for watching our video all the way to the end. Goodbye, and see you again in our next videos.